Hello, welcome to Viewpoints. My name is George Beach and I'm here today with Fred Stein to talk about his master's thesis on ending America's energy dependence through the use of electric vehicles. Fred, welcome.
Thanks, George.
All right, why don't we start by just giving me an idea of what your thesis was about?
I wrote a thesis that looked at America's dependence on foreign oil, really, and realized that the amount of energy that we import is just about equal to the amount of energy that we use on electric vehicles. So I examined whether or not you could change people's purchase of vehicle type by increasing the price of gasoline and decreasing the price of the electric vehicle. And through a mathematical model, predicted that you could do that, and if you stop using gasoline to drive vehicles, you end America's dependence on foreign oil.
How did you come up with your topic?
Interestingly, it's from the master's program. The very first course we had, one of the questions they asked us was to write a paper on what we thought was the single greatest threat to America's homeland security. And I struggled a bit with that and eventually settled on energy dependence because of all the second order effects. So it's not just, the $1 billion a day that goes out for foreign oil, but all the policy implications of our dependence. There's talk, for example, right now that we'd like to have stronger sanctions on Iran, us and as well as our European partners, but we can't do it because we're concerned that the ramifications on the price of oil would be so significant that it would cripple our economy. So that led me to the topic.
What do you think were maybe some of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome or some obstacles?
Well, interestingly, what I don't think it is technology. So when I started, I was looking at the idea that we needed a moonshot program, an Apollo-type program to develop some new source of energy. And what I realized is we really don't need that. The technology is here. The Tesla Roadster is a great example. It goes 300 miles on a charge and is an extremely high-performance sports car. So now it's too expensive, though. So price is a problem, but technology isn't. You do have to get people to want to buy the vehicle, though. So that is absolutely a practical obstacle. But the idea that the market can make that happen, that people will buy what is economically in their interests, and with a little bit of manipulation, you can jumpstart it so that the market reflects that and people will buy electric vehicles.
So you talked a little bit about pricing, how price is going to be a concern for American purchasers of electric vehicles. Do you see a time where current energy practices become more expensive and where this might be actually more economically feasible?
Yes. The research I did led me to the conclusion that in 30 years, we're going to be on electric vehicles no matter what, that the market will develop there. And that's great, and it actually led me to my model of what to do, but because of the national security implications and the effects across the spectrum of homeland and national security, I want to speed that up. And with a policy that, cut to the chase, with a policy that puts a excise tax on gasoline, so starting at $2 a gallon and rising to $5 a gallon, taking the money that you raise from that and reducing the price of electric vehicles by $15,000, that will very quickly modify the market, but use normal market forces to bring about an electric vehicle market in the United States.
So Fred, you're an attorney with TSA. So how do you plan on pursuing this agenda further into the future?
That's something that I'm struggling with. I've written the thesis and I believe in it, but I want to find a way to socialize it, if you would. And I'm going to try and hit it from a bunch of different angles. Looking at the Homeland Security Journal and publishing a shorter, more succinct version of it there so that it gets some talking and gets some critical peer review, which I think is important. I'd like to be prepared to have a talk kind of like this, but maybe even a more critical talk about it and take it to anybody who's either interested in homeland and national security, strictly looking at energy dependence, or even from an environmental perspective, there's of course a movement that would love to bring about an electric vehicle market and be ready to explain why it's so important and how it's so feasible. It's in our reach.
Fred, your thesis contradicts or disrupts some commonly held beliefs about energy. Can you tell us a little bit about some examples?
Sure. I think one perception out there is that America just doesn't produce very much oil and that's the root of the problem. But in reality, we produce the third most oil in the world. So it's not a matter of not having the resources. We have a lot of the resources, we just use a lot of oil. I think that another thing that you hear a lot is that all we need to do is develop wind or solar or thermal energy or even maybe nuclear energy and we can be energy independent. But in reality, we use oil, I think it's only about 2% of the oil we use to produce electricity. So creating all these other mechanisms to produce electricity is not going to solve the energy dependence problem because you can't, well, you need a mechanism to take that electricity production and turn it into a replacement for oil. And electric vehicles do exactly that.
Great. Sounds like a fantastic topic, and I'm glad you participated in our program with us. And do you have any parting thoughts as far as your thesis?
If you think that energy dependence is a grave threat to security, the good news is it's very solvable. It takes some political will and desire, but it doesn't take a great technological leap. We can do it in the next few years if we really want to.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Fred.
Thank you for having me.